Hello everyone, sorry it's been a while. My name is Craig Griffiths, I'm the host of Pipcast, and welcome to this happy ODP Day video. Now, the theme for ODP Day this year is committed to care, to committed to safety. I was thinking, how could we celebrate ODPs in this way? And part of that has to do with, why I haven't been posting as much recently. And that is to do with the kind of, I say project, basically my job that's been going on over the past 3 to 4 years. And I thought, what better way to show how we were going to demonstrate how well ODPs are committed to care is kind of by describing how we at my University of South Wales, my colleagues, Deb, Brian, Ash Davis, and all the people that help us out across the board, how we have committed to care in the teaching and education of our students across this course. We are about to have our first set of graduates finishing in July, and really excited to show you So how do we go about choosing how we were going to create these fantastic ODPs? Well, there's a curriculum to follow from the College of Operating Department Practice, currently undergoing review, so it should be updated, ready for the future of Operating Department Practice, as well as meeting the standards of proficiency and education for the Health and Care Professions Council. And so these are the things we had to adhere to. And as part of that process, you can kind of add your own flavor of how you achieve those goals. Currently, and I think in some ways to the betterment of our profession, the curriculum isn't so rigid in that you are stuck to a certain delivery method. That means in different areas you can have various different types of courses, based on different resourcing availability requirements and things like that. And I think we've taken that to our advantage. I think the one thing that maybe not separates us, but certainly is explicit in our course, is this theme we set out for, which is this me and mine, which I took from my lecturer, Paul Hennessy, as this core belief that everyone who graduates from our university, I would be happy, my colleagues would be happy to look after not just me, but any one of my loved ones. We do not want a situation where we send someone out into practice that deep down we knew in our heart of hearts, if us or our family members were on the table with them, we would be worried. We shouldn't do that. So we got to designing, and what did that entail for us? Well, as you can see, we started off, and you may have seen this last year, we started off by going for a authentic simulation-based form of education. It was really important to us that none of our students would go and practice on a patient a task for the first time, essentially, if they hadn't done it at some point in some form of simulation-based setting. And what did that look like? Well, as you can see from these videos, we've utilized the resources of the university. We managed to acquire three anesthetic machines, which meant we could teach in groups, large groups of students to how to take apart anesthetic machines, how to put them back together. And yes, you might have noticed they are quite older machines, but what that means is they could take them apart. They could find out where bits go. So if there is a malfunction in the machine, they're already thinking about how it's going wrong, how it could potentially be fixed. And yes, you're right, in practice you might pull that machine out and replace it. But what if you can't in that initial moment? Being able to solve that problem. ODPs are great problem solvers. That commitment to care is that commitment to problem solving. So really, really important we did that. So we were able to do that. But the thing I wanted to do in the first year, which I don't think you see enough across ODP programs, is really get into proper surgical simulation where our students are able to actually have a go, learn surgery, learn about the skills that they're going to use on a day-to-day basis from a surgical perspective. And we were lucky we had a good amount of investment, and we were able to prioritize lots of kit, but also just innovative kind of new solutions in order to give our students experience in surgery before they were going to look after patients in surgery. For things like just having your operating tables to actually letting them do surgical tasks, whether it be operating on an orange or doing an orifice repair on a piece of wood, using power tools and things like that. These were really key into that me and mine strategy, and that all came alongside the background knowledge and understanding of what it means to be an ODP and look after people across healthcare, the anatomy, the physiology, the holistic part of care. And that was championed by my colleague in particular, Deb Ryan, who has been integral to kind of dealing with the anesthetic side in the first year, but definitely around that holistic management of the patient through their journey, and has been brilliant at bringing through students to not just be great practitioners, but actually start thinking to be great leaders and managers. But how do we expand on that into the second year? We needed one more piece of our puzzle. Our team needed to expand, and we recruited a man that you'll see here called Ash Davis. I'd only met Ash the year before, and we had a very similar vision of what we wanted ODP education to be like. He very much wanted to include things that he felt he didn't have or didn't have enough of as part of his education. And we had a discussion around this concept of spontaneous simulations, which is where you may recognize Ash's face from the talk he did for AFPP or any other stuff you might have seen about him around spontaneous simulations. And it was this concept that as part of the education and getting students to really understand anesthetic and recovery practice to a really in-depth level, to kind of, we've kind of deemed ALS light, but ALS kind of level in that second year, was to give students those realistic feeling scenarios of using those skills. And you can see here we've got a number of different scenarios that students would be put into, being on call for whatever lesson they were in, and they would execute those simulation scenarios. Now, as you can see from various different aspects of this, their practice started off with gaps in it. Sometimes they were concentrating human factors wise on something so that their CPR wasn't always the best it could have been, and that was fine. They were doing it in a practice environment. But what happened is at the end of their second year, and I can happily say this particularly about our third years, and I'm sure I'll say it about our current second years when they get to it, is that those students got to the end of those 2 years probably at the same stage I was when I was qualified, which makes sense. If you look at the CODP curriculum, when we went from a diploma to a degree, the whole point wasn't to take a 2-year course and extend it over 3 years. The whole point was that third year to make added value. So where our students are at the end of their second year should probably be that of where I was when I qualified, having done the diploma. And I think our students exhibited that. And that is no small part to the amazing education and experiences of little innovative things. Well, I say little, innovative practices like the spontaneous simulations and all the teaching that went behind it with our simulation staff and everything like that. So then to the future, to this true commitment to care. We've got these students to the point where, all the way through, our assessments are based on making sure we're happy for them to look after us and our loved ones at the stage of the course that they're at. How do we take that further? Well, as we saw during the pandemic, as you've seen in multiple videos from here, our skills as ODPs have thrived and were able to be shown during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond that now. We even have Giles Farrington, who has developed the Allied Health framework for critical care, which is an amazing achievement for ODPs to be involved in something as immense as that. We wanted to have that same commitment to that care in our course. So our students in their third year, they take those foundational and developed skills from year 1 and year 2 in anaesthetic and surgical practice, and we develop them further. In the anaesthetic side, we develop our practitioners into critical care practitioners. We took advice and notes from various different critical care providers within our local area. We spoke to the Critical Care Nurses Forum, and we even utilized the team that we have at USW who run our critical care post-registration course. Recommend it for any ODPs who are looking to go into that area or just to develop their recovery skills. And we take those spontaneous simulations and we turn them into less spontaneous but definitely more involved, more in-depth simulations where they are taking on the role of more autonomous practice. They are going in depth on various different aspects of care across that A to E spectrum, across the different body systems. And as part of that, in leading up to that, we've also done things like teaching them about pathophysiology. How do we get deteriorating patients? How does that work across the spectrum of organ systems and things like that? And you can see that being displayed across here. And our students are excelling now in these scenarios and have excelled, the proof in the pudding, being in practice. In fact, you can hear from some of our students how that spontaneous simulation has helped them in their practice.
Yes, it's allowed me to apply theory to practice.
So everything that's taught in the classroom is also taught in a way that I can understand it clinically, and I can understand that what I'm seeing on paper is actually real life things. So for example, hypoxia is not just a word, it's someone being blue. Let's say some like other symptoms, it's not just symptoms on a piece of paper, it's sometimes you'll see it. It's also helped me gain confidence in being in certain situations, you know, like certain times you'll go to placement and then you'll have certain scenarios and I'll just think, okay, I've built on some confidence, you know, I've done this in spon sims, so why can't I do this in placement?
I do think that it would benefit me after qualifying, just because like you don't see all of the things in practice on placement that you can potentially see when you're qualified. So I think like the method of teaching where it exposes you to all of the kind of different scenarios that you can see now, it will be really beneficial when that then comes and you see that in real life.
Lastly though, and the kind of pet project of mine that's been going on throughout this entire course to really show that, again, commitment to care, quality and safety, is the development of our advanced surgical practice or surgical first assistant module that we have for our students. This was undertaken looking at curriculums from the CODP, the AFPP, as well as talking to practitioners and people who had taken other courses. And what we wanted to do is take that really hands-on practice, those courses that are undertaken like basic surgical skills and things like that, and really give our students the best chance, the best experience to feel like they are ready to sit in that world of the assistant to the surgeon. And what that meant is a lot of innovation. But the key issue we had here is costs. I don't know if you've seen surgical dummies, surgical models, but when you're utilizing them again and again and again, they become extortionate to run those programs unless you've got a wet lab, and even then, to run a wet lab you need certain requirements. And so as part of developing not just task trainers where you're just doing a little suture here, but actually wanting our students to experience what actual surgery might look like, what the considerations for surgery around layers of tissue, around handling different tissue types, around choosing instrumentation and making sure they're doing good communication between themselves and the surgeon, we had to get inventive. And as you can see here, our surgical models, we have a basic box, and then we basically have custom made by yours truly and help with our simulation team. We have custom made surgical kits, surgical simulators that enable us to teach and assess from a simulation perspective the relative competence of our students, so that when they are going into practice, when they are looking after and assisting on my son, me, my wife, your aunt, your gran, they're not doing this for the first time. They're not doing this without any knowledge. They're doing it not only with the theoretical, but the practical skills. And that was really important to us. Now, lastly, as part of this commitment, we've talked about how we've developed our students from that foundational level, going through and developing those skills so they get to that level where they could run a list if they wanted, and then going into that third year and advancing those skills. Deb's work on taking students through a management OSCEs to kind of a leadership project and change management project at the end of the year, teaching and learning to help facilitate looking after students and things like that. All of that is encompassed in our course to try and create this me and mine practitioner, this practitioner that we would be more than happy to look after us and our loved ones. That culminated and is culminating this year in several projects, quality improvement projects, and really interestingly, innovation projects. The people you can see on the screen now, one of our students, Grace, Ash, who you've seen before, and the other one is David Dawkins. David is one of our lead lecturers in our engineering department, and him, Ash, myself, and our students are starting a collaboration where we are having our students come up with innovative solutions to potential healthcare problems and having these things actually developed. That's right. Our student has a good idea for something they've seen in practice, a problem they could potentially solve. We work with our engineering team as part of their final year project for them to make that as much of a reality as they can, whether they get it to the prototype stage or whatever it is. That in turn is going to lead to massive changes and improvements potentially in practice going forward. That combined with the quality improvement projects where our students are solving real world problems through various different changes in policy or potential developing algorithms is one of the ways in which we feel confident that the ODPs coming out of our university, who you may never have heard of, may never even see or think about, may be having a bigger impact on your life, your health, than you could ever imagine. Happy ODP Day, everyone. Thank you very much.